Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my college football top 25 for week 7. Before I continue, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate you do that. Really try and grow the channel, so go ahead and do that. So week 6, you got some good games, obviously, some surprising results. Um, Week 7, I'm just going to tell you right now, there's a lot of good games for week 7. So I can't wait for week 7. A lot of top 25 matchups. So let's get into it. We'll go 25 through 1, and then I'll tell you the teams that kicked out of the top 25, and then teams that are right on the cups of being in the top 25. So let's get into it. Number 25 is Illinois' 9-6 victory over an Iowa team that I think has the worst offense in America in the country. Um, but they're 5-1 Illinois. And listen, let me tell you something. If they didn't have a bad loss to an Indiana team that I don't think's that good, they would probably be somewhere in the top 20. Illinois looks like they might win the Big Ten West. Brett Bielema has really worked some wonders there at Illinois, and they look like a team that's going to at least win 8-9 games. So we'll see what happens down the stretch. They still have Minnesota. They still have Purdue. So we'll see what happens. Number 24, Kansas State. They beat Iowa State 10-9. Iowa State. I still think Iowa State's not a bad team. Kansas State, they only have one loss. That one loss is to Tulane, which kind of I mean Tulane is also only a one loss team, so I guess it's not a bad loss, but it is to a group of 5 team. But Kansas State, they if you look at their resume, they have some pretty good wins. So number 24, Kansas State, newly ranked. Number 23, James Madison. I moved them up one spot. They beat an Arkansas State team that's actually probably one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, possibly. They at least recruit like the one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. Arkansas State does. James Madison, they're undefeated. I think that their last game against Coastal Carolina, both teams could be 11-0 going into that. That will be a huge, huge game if that's the case. But I moved James Madison up one spot. A good win over Arkansas State. Number 22, Kansas. First loss of the season, you might be like, well, I moved them down a little bit too much. It's just how the top 25 went this week with how the teams played. I still think Kansas is a top 25 team. I have them here at number 22. Only a touchdown loss to TCU. You're actually underdogs by 7 points. You lost by 7 points. So good job, Vegas, on that. But I still think Kansas is going to be winning at minimum 8-9 games. I mean, yeah, I don't think they're as talented as some of these teams are going to be going up against, such as Oklahoma State's, Baylor's, even like a Texas or Oklahoma. But I still think Kansas, they're going to win some games, moving down 5 spots, but they're still a top 25 team in number 22. And then number 21, Mississippi State. I'm probably a bit low on Mississippi State, honestly, here in number 21, but they weren't in the top 25 last week. And looking at how the teams performed throughout the week, I didn't really have a chance to move them into the top 20. But I do think they are probably a top 20 team. They, outside of a loss to LSU, it's been really good at Mississippi State. They blew out an Arkansas team, which, and by the way, I'm just saying this right now, I'm done with Arkansas for 2022. I don't think they're gonna be. I think at best they'll make a bowl game. But look at Mississippi State. They still have Alabama. Um, they still. I mean, they beat A&M, which is great. But they still have Bama. They have Kentucky this week. That's gonna be a difficult game. So number 21, Mississippi State. Now the top 20. Number 20, Syracuse. I didn't move them at all. They had a bye week. Syracuse and Minnesota kind of go hand in hand. Both of these teams have bye weeks. I should probably, looking at this, I should probably put Syracuse ahead of Minnesota because of the head-to-head. But I would take Minnesota. And what I mean by the head-to-head, with Purdue. Purdue beat Minnesota, but Syracuse beat Purdue. So, I mean, that is kind of probably a little bit of a mistake on my end. I should probably have these two teams flip. But I would take Minnesota on a neutral field against Syracuse. I'm not absolutely sold that Syracuse is really a top 25 team, but they are undefeated. They have a big game against NC State. We'll see what happens in that one. So, number 20, Syracuse. Number 19, Minnesota. Minnesota, they had a bye week. They have a big game against Penn State in 2 weeks from now, I believe they do. I forget who they get this upcoming week. Number 18, Utah. You might feel like this is a bit of an overreaction, moving them down 9 spots. It might be, but I was really impressed with some teams that I had moved them ahead of where I was thinking I was going to be moving them ahead before the games kicked off. And Utah, they were the only team really, one of those top teams that lost, so I moved them down 9 spots. I still think they're a top 25 team. I actually still think they're a top 20 team. Big game against Southern Cal this upcoming week. We'll see what happens. 8 o'clock on Fox. That's definitely a game I will be watching. So Utah, number 18. Number 17, Texas. Pitch a shutout against Oklahoma with 49-0. Just very impressed with them overall. I mean, if you look at Texas's resume, the Texas Tech loss isn't that good, but the Bama loss by 1 point is that is a good loss. Um, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Texas down the stretch. They could go 10-2. And they're 10-2. That they are probably a borderline top 10 team. They do that. So number 17, Texas. I moved them up 6 spots. Penn State. I moved Penn State down 1 spot. They had a bye. They have a big game next week against Michigan on the road. If you look at Penn State's past 2 performances and how some of these teams played, I just ended up moving them down 1 spot. I think they are probably a top 15 team, but I just haven't. I mean, yeah, they blew out Auburn. That win, the more the season goes by, that win isn't really looking too impressive. I get that the Northwestern game was a rainstorm, but I mean, I forget which. I think it was Central Michigan out of the MAC. Whoever they faced out of the MAC, they sleptwalked through that game. So I'm not very sold on Penn State. We'll see what happens against Michigan this upcoming Saturday. But I moved Penn State down 1 spot to number 16. Now the top 15. Number 15, Wake Forest blew out Army. Good win for them. I moved you guys up 2 spots. I'm pretty impressed with Wake Forest. You lost the game to Clemson in overtime in a shootout. You turned around, you beat a Florida State team that I still think is pretty good. You blew out Army. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Wake Forest. I moved them up 2 spots. I think they're a top 15 team. Number 14, UCLA. I was wrong about UCLA. I think UCLA is a team that I honestly think could win 10, 11 games. The Southern Cal game is going to be tough. The Utah game is going to, I mean, not the Utah game. You guys beat Utah. The only other, I mean, who do you get out of the Pac-12 North? You beat Washington. Do you get Oregon? I think you guys actually do play Oregon this week out of the Pac-12 North. So I know they don't do divisions anymore, but the schedule is still aligned with the divisions there in the Pac-12. But UCLA, I'm really impressed with them. I moved them up 8 spots. Very impressive win against Utah. Absolutely controlled that game from start to finish. Number 13, TCU. You got a top 25 win. You're undefeated. I moved you up 5 spots if you're TCU. I still think TCU is going to lose a game or two down the stretch, but I do think that since they're undefeated, they have the top 25 win against Kansas. They beat a pretty decent SMU team. You got them in the top 25. They have Oklahoma State this week. That's going to be a great game as well. As I'm telling you, there's a lot of great games this upcoming week. You have Syracuse and NC State, UCLA and Oregon, Penn State, Michigan. You have you have a top 10 matchup this week. TCU and Oklahoma State, USC, Utah. Just a lot of great games. Number 12, Baylor. I didn't move Baylor. They had a bye this week. I didn't move Baylor at all. I think they're a top 15 team. Number 12, Baylor. Number 11, NC State. I'm going to give NC State some credit for being a ranked team in Florida State. Florida State was number 25 last week. I did drop Florida State out, a little bit of a look ahead there later on in the video, but I was impressed with NC State. I'm not sold on this offense, but I do think that outside of the Clemson loss, we'll see what this team does. They have Syracuse this upcoming week, top 25 matchup in that one. Number 10. Number 10 is Oregon. Oregon, they took care of business against Arizona. I know it was 49-16 at one point. I don't know what the final was, but I moved them up 3 spots. If you don't look at that Georgia game, Oregon's been pretty impressive. So number 10, Oregon. Number 9, Ole Miss. You beat Vandy. I moved you up 1 spot by default. You did blow out Vandy. I know you guys have struggled blowing out teams that you're clearly better than, but you did finally blow out a team that you were better than, and Vandy. So I moved you guys up 1 spot. Number 9, Ole Miss. And you guys play LSU. Another pretty good game there. Number 8, Southern Cal. I know Southern Cal won. I moved Southern Cal down one spot because I was actually more. So let me reword that. I moved Southern Cal down one spot because to me, um, Oklahoma State and Tennessee and Southern Cal kind of all in the same boat with me. And I'm kind of just gonna rank these teams on how I feel about them head to head on neutral fields. So I'm going to kind of talk about these three teams all together. Southern Cal, they're undefeated. They beat Washington State. Decent Washington State team. I still think they're going to at least make a bowl game, but um, they have a big game. And to Southern Cal's credit, they did not look ahead to Utah. They have a big game on the road against Utah this upcoming week. We'll see what happens in that one. I was really impressed with Tennessee going on the road, not looking ahead. Tennessee has Bama next week, and they had a tough game against to me, a top 30 LSU team, or maybe not top 30 anymore. But Tennessee, from start to finish, dominated that game. I was really impressed with Tennessee throughout that game. I only moved up one spot because I still would take Oklahoma State over Tennessee on the neutral field. Oklahoma State, a bit of a comeback win against Texas Tech, maybe not too impressive, but I still think Oklahoma State has the best win out of all three of these teams against Baylor, which they controlled from start to finish that game. But I was pretty impressed with Tennessee. I gotta admit, they have a big game at home against Alabama. I don't know what College Game Day is going. I know they were already in Knoxville. Would they go to Knoxville again? To me, that's the game of the week, Alabama, Tennessee. So, but Tennessee number 7, Oklahoma State number 6. I didn't move Oklahoma State, but you did a bit of a comeback win. You guys were down 31-23 there in the fourth quarter. So a Texas Tech team that's not bad, but I still think Oklahoma State Oklahoma State, Tennessee, Southern Cal is the best team out of these three. So that's why I have Oklahoma State number 6. Now the top 5. Number 5, Clemson. I think Clemson and Michigan are kind of getting towards the same island. I would still take Michigan. I have Michigan number 4, by the way. I would still take Michigan in a head-to-head on a neutral field over Clemson. But I gotta admit, Clemson's resume is probably a little more impressive than Michigan. Michigan hasn't done anything, in my opinion, to have them drop off at all. Um, I'll admit they haven't really looked and I'm not counting the first 3 games. They haven't really looked impressive against the Power Five teams they face in the Big Ten. Even the Indiana game, they sleptwalked through that first half, in my opinion. Clemson, pretty impressive win against Boston College there on the road, 31-3. They're undefeated. Clemson is. They still have Notre Dame. I believe they still have Syracuse on the schedule as well. They have Florida State this week. It's going to be interesting to see if Clemson could get past these games and maybe not slip up somewhere. But Clemson looks like what they were before COVID. Well, I guess they were in the playoffs during the COVID season. What they were pre 2021. Clemson's looking a lot more like that. I'm still not absolutely sold on Clemson's offense, but I do think they're the 5th best team in the country. And as I said, Michigan's the 4th best team in the country because I would just take Michigan head to head against Clemson. But Michigan, I gotta admit, Clemson has probably looked a little more impressive than Michigan in my opinion. I think the resume is a bit better, but I just think Michigan is better than Clemson. So Michigan number 4. They have a big game against Penn State. That's gonna be a huge game there. Then the top 3. Georgia's still number 3. Kind of got back into your groove a little bit against Auburn. I'm not. I'm filming this at about 11 a.m. I have not seen I have not seen any news yet, but I'm expecting that Brian Harson's gonna get fired. I just am. I think he's done there. But Georgia, in my opinion, is the 3rd best team in the country. I think they're clearly number 3. They kind of got found the groove back. They still have Kentucky. They still have Tennessee on the schedule. So we'll see what happens in those 2 games. But number 3, Georgia. There's a new number 1. Number 2, Alabama. Yeah, I moved Alabama down one spot. Um, the game against A&M, I am going to give Bama a pass because they were playing a backup quarterback, and you're going to be like, whoa, it's Alabama. Jalen Malone is probably a 4-star quarterback. And I get that, but it is tough to win with your backup quarterback. I thought A&M should have won that game, honestly. That was a horrible play call with first and goal with 3 seconds left in the game. I mean, that ball was if he caught that, he would have been it would have been at the 1 yard line. So that ball has to at least go in the end zone if you're throwing it. I would have probably tried to design a play around that running back, Devon Arkney, if I was A&M, but Jimbo Fisher I thought choked that game away with that play call. So, but Bama, I moved you guys down one spot because I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think Ohio State's the best team in the country. I mean, they haven't really struggled against anybody. I mean, you can say, oh, they struggled against Notre Dame week one. They get past me on that because Notre Dame had 8 weeks to prepare for the, not 8 weeks, 8 months to prepare for that. Um, and Notre Dame did get an impressive win against number 21 BYU, who's also not in my top 25 anymore. But Notre Dame does have some decent wins. Is what I'm trying to get at. They also have a win against North Carolina, a team that I think is a top 30 team. But Ohio State, I think, is clearly the best team in the country. They still have Michigan, Penn State. I'm going to throw Maryland in there. I'll talk about Maryland here in a few seconds, but um, and I am a Maryland Terps fan, so you can call me a homer in that comment if you want. But I think Ohio State's clearly the number one team. I think Bama's win against Arkansas isn't as impressive as it was last week. I still think the Texas win is impressive for Bama, but um, outside of that, I mean, show me the other impressive wins. So, number one, Ohio State. Number two, Alabama. Now the teams I dropped out. Number 11, Kentucky. If this was a top 26, Kentucky would be number 26. And I really thought hard about 24 and 25. I have Kansas State 24, Illinois 25. What it came down to was the records. Both of those teams only have one loss. Kentucky has two losses. Kentucky, in my opinion, I'm going to give them a bit of a pass. And you might be like, well, you dropped them from number 11 to out of your top 25. I'm still giving them a little bit of a pass. They did run out their backup quarterback, so that's why I'm going to give them a little bit of a pass. But you got to beat South Carolina at home if you're Kentucky. I'm not really sold on South Carolina. I still think now, granted, against Kentucky, those issues looked like they were fixed for the most part, but I still think that South Carolina has some issues overall with their team, and not like not like culture issues or anything, just like the talent's not there issues, more of that. And trust me, that is a really impressive win for South Carolina. Shane Beamer to go on the road like that and beat Kentucky. That's a really impressive win for South Carolina. And to me, I didn't consider them for the top 25, but I did want to give them a shout out there. But listen, it just came down to records. That's what it came down to. I was like, I'm paying these two one-loss teams over the two-loss team. That's what it came down to. So Kentucky was number 11. I dropped them out, but if it was a top 26, Kentucky would be number 26. BYU at 21. You lost to Notre Dame. I said you guys were going to lose to Notre Dame. You did. You're number 21. I dropped you guys out. And then Florida State at number 25. If you're number 25 and if you lose, I gotta drop you out. So that's what it comes down to. I still think Florida State's a top 30 team. I still think BYU is a top 30 team, but I had to drop you guys out. Teams I considered. Number 20, I would say probably Florida State would be number 27. Number 28 would be BYU. Number 29 would be Purdue. Now, let me just vent my frustrations as a Maryland Terps fan here for a second before I get into Purdue. Maryland that game should have went to overtime. I'm just going to come out and say it. Purdue blocked an extra point when Maryland was trying to get the game to 24-17. They blocked the extra point, which is fine and all, if the Purdue defender wasn't clearly offsides. That was the most blatant offsides call I have seen miss in a really long time, probably since that. And I'm going to tell you guys a story here. The Browns Chargers game a few years ago. The Browns and Chargers faced each other in the NFL. There was a blatant false start that was missed. You want to know what happened the next day? It might have been the Tuesday though. They fired that referee that was supposed to make that call. So the way refereeing works is that each referee is assigned a certain area of the field, basically to referee each play. There's no way you can miss that call on that extra point, on that blocked extra point. And listen, I mean, that's not why the main reason we lost. Because who knows? But man, that game should have at least went to overtime. I mean, if they lost in overtime, my Terps did to Purdue, fine. But I have an issue with them blatantly missing that. I just do. And also the ineligible receiver, well, not ineligible receiver, ineligible player downfield on a 2-point try. I've never seen that called on a 2-point try before. I know that's a judgment call, and maybe I'm just oblivious, but I've never seen that call on a 2-point try. But that's all. That's all I'm going to say about that. But that did really piss me off about the offsides call. Let's just say that. But Purdue has two pretty impressive wins against they went ahead, they beat Minnesota. I still think Minnesota is a top 25 team, as you can see in my poll. Maryland, I think it's going to win 8-9 games, most likely. So I still think they are. I think that's a great win, especially going on the road and being Purdue. If you're Purdue, I think you guys could beat Minnesota on the road as well. So those are impressive wins for Purdue. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays down the season for Purdue. A lot of people are high on Purdue. I wasn't really buying it. But I got to admit, these past two wins for Purdue are pretty impressive. So we'll see what happens. Number 29 will be Coastal Carolina. They're undefeated. It just comes down to the resume between Coastal Carolina and James Madison. I'm more impressed with James Madison's resume. I think James Madison's wins are better, but I still think Coastal Carolina is a top 30 team. Um, Liberty is the next team up. One loss to Wake Forest by 1 point. Besides that, you're blowing everybody out. So Liberty, I think, is a team that you should be considering in your top 25. Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati's loss to Arkansas is a bad loss. I just do. I think if those two teams play on neutral field, I think Cincinnati probably beats them more out of 10. It's probably 6-4 at least in Cincinnati's favor out of 10 games. In that win against Arkansas, but they only have one loss. They have struggled against the two worst teams in the standings in the American in Tulsa and South Florida. South Florida is a bad team. Tulsa, I think, won't end up being the second worst team in the American. I think they'll probably leapfrog a few teams, but yeah, Cincinnati one loss. You got to put them in at least in consideration. And then North Carolina and Tulane. North Carolina only has one loss, but their resume is pretty weak. If you want my honest opinion, um, I mean, you did lose to Notre Dame in blowout fashion. Well, not blowout fashion, but pretty convincing fashion. I get that Notre Dame has a pretty good win against BYU, but um, Notre Dame's probably right there with you guys. And then Tulane, I don't like the Southern Miss loss at all, but you guys did beat Kansas State, who's number 24 in my poll, and that's your only losses to Southern Miss. I consider you guys as well. So that's the top 25. Comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. As I said, a lot of big games this upcoming week. We will be picking them. I'm going to try to get these picks out a bit earlier this week. Just because I want them out there because of how big some of these games are. But we're starting to get into October where some of these games are really going to be big. So, can't wait. Thanks for watching the video. Hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate you do that. McD the Beast signing off.